This is one of the most beautiful cars ever made, and you can find them for under 7k all day long. It's the BMW 7 Series from the mid-90s, so the E38 generation. And in this video, you will learn everything you need to know about these cars to just get educated or decide to buy one afterwards. They are just perfect if you want a VIP cruiser or just an incredibly cool daily driver. And even though they are rather quick and handle great, you can't expect anything close to sports car performance, because they are focused on luxury while still being a proper driver's car. And they are actually the last 7 Series to be offered with a manual transmission option, which is fucking dope. And right away, they are not too unreliable actually, but more on that later. So let's start with talking about the design, because these cars just look timeless. Their design is super simple, but it has all of the classic BMW stuff. So like that beautiful large front end with the straight body lines and perfect proportions on the side, as well as the super simple and clean rear end. It's just insane how well it works together. So I don't know how anyone could dislike this car. And the interior looks equally as nice as the outside. It's a little old school, but I love exactly that about it. You get buttons for pretty much everything instead of all these modern touchscreens. And its yet again simple design is just awesome. They didn't really have a built-in TV, phone, and they were offered with satellite navigation. Remember, in the 90s. And they are just insanely comfortable, as they have super nice leather seats that are electrically adjustable, and so is even the steering column. Again, in the 90s. But it's the suspension that really makes the comfort special, as the electronic dampers do a great job at getting you a very smooth ride. But the steering still feels connected, so the driving experience is smooth and relaxing, but fun at the same time. The back seats are of course a very nice place to be in, as there is a lot of space back there and they are very comfortable too, but it's still nicer to actually drive these cars. Because these cars are just pretty big, they're also a perfect daily driver. Let me explain. The looks are absolutely on point, and they have enough space for 5 people, but with the IL, you can expand the space for the rear passengers by about 15 centimeters or just under 6 inches, and it basically just changes the legroom. So the car roughly goes from about 5 meters to 5.2 meters in total length. These cars also have a good amount of trunk space, so you can easily fit about 3 full-size suitcases in the rear, and that's pretty good for a saloon. And because it's a BMW, they have a lot of engine options, and they are pretty nice overall. So I get you a good overview. They have inline 6s with about 190 to 215 horsepower, and they are gonna be your most reliable options, because BMW built those forever. Then there are V8s with about 230 or 280 horsepower, and they just sound great while still being strong engines, though they definitely are less reliable. And then of course there's a V12 with 322 horsepower, and it's just overkill and a nightmare to maintain. As this car was the first 7 Series that offered diesel engines, there's an inline 6 turbo diesel with 140 or 190 horsepower, so about 280 or 410 Newton meters of torque, and they are pretty reliable too. But then there's a twin turbo V8 diesel with 241 horsepower but 560 Newton meters of torque. So that thing pulls hard and still is pretty reliable too. So if you want more details, just pause the video right here. And generally with these engines, the more cylinders they have, the higher the maintenance. But you'll have to wait a few seconds to get more on that. And while the fuel economy still is high, it's not too bad. So with the inline 6s you get about 18 to 29 miles per gallon, with the V8s about 15 to 27, and with the V12 about 13 to 19. With the diesel options, the inline 6s and the V8 both get about 23 to 38, though the diesels are not sold in the US. So quickly to the transmissions, there are 5-speed automatics offered for all of the versions, and then a 6-speed manual for the 740, as well as a 5-speed manual for all the versions below the 740. But now, I hear you asking about reliability. In terms of transmissions, the manuals are pretty damn solid, but the automatics can struggle a bit after higher mileage, so you can get misshifts or failure, but frequent fluid changes and maintenance basically prevent that. And don't worry, the engines have a few issues too. So let's start with the cooling system. The radiator, water pump and thermostat can leak and eventually fail, so you need to be careful with that to prevent overheating. Then they can also get some oil leaks because of the few seals, so like the valve cover gasket, oil pan gasket and the rear main seal. And specifically for the V8, the timing chain guides just suck. They're made out of super cheap plastic that just gets destroyed by the chain, so they need to be replaced every 100,000 kilometers or 60,000 miles. I don't know, it's just fucking stupid. Then these engines can also have misfires, mostly related to spark plugs, the ignition coils or even the ECU. Your exhaust can also corrode on the mufflers and tips, and you can get some fuel leaks, most of the times due to the fuel pump leaking and eventually failing too. Then there's also the Werner system, but just on facelift models, and it's just some valve timing stuff, basically like Honda VTEC. Then also the PCV can fail, and I have no idea what that is. So overall, it's not as bad as it seems right now, because it's mostly smaller things. But those can get pretty annoying and sometimes rather expensive. I mean, generally, the engines are pretty reliable, but the big stuff is of course the cooling system and the timing chain guides on the V8. But even though these things can happen of course, most of the cars were treated well. They were bought to be long distance cruisers, so most of them did a lot of highway miles, so therefore it's not always a problem to buy a higher mileage example. Then most of them were also owned by older people, businessmen and people who drive long ways on the highway to work. And those typically are the people that look after their car and maintain it. Though not all of them of course. Some were shit on for sure. But hold on, there are more problems these cars can have. For example, electrical ones. The pixels in the displays can be faulty and you can have problems with the wiring harness. That's expensive. Then also the suspension, steering, brakes and tires wear out prematurely just because the car is pretty heavy. And the interior pieces can start to degrade already, and the window regulators can fail. Also the sunroof can have some issues, and the clear coat on the paint can start to fade and eventually chip. And in some cases also the key fob made some problems, as well as the central locking system. But now to some general information about the car. So it was built from 1995 to 2001 and had a facelift in 98. That just changed the head and tail lights, the 740D was introduced, the inline 6 and V8 gasoline engines got a Venus upgrade, the sport package was introduced with a new suspension and some other minor things, and electric stability control was added to all facelift cars. So it's not much, but still pretty nice. And another pretty cool thing about these cars is their appearance in movies. There's an E38 in James Bond Tomorrow Never Dies, just iconic. And then it also was the choice for the movie Transporter, which is a pretty awesome movie actually. And if you watched until now, that probably means that you like these cars. So let's talk about the prices. You can start getting them for a few $1,000, but a lot of them are in rougher shape. In the US, you should probably plan about 7 to 8k for a budget to get a decent one. But the weird thing in Germany is, there are a lot of these cars for sale, and decent ones start at about 3k. But of course great ones with rather low mileage already sell for like 7 or 8k too, so that surprised me actually. But of course you should always have a little money saved up for repairs and just general maintenance. But these cars still offer a great value for the money. At least that's what I think, because I personally love them, and I would like to get one as maybe my second car in the near future. So like, be honest, it would be pretty amazing to own one of them. So please like the video if you learned something new about the E38 and maybe want to get one too. So have a good day and check this video out if you haven't already. So see you next time.